Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening. Welcome to
Good
the
evening.
Good evening. Welcome to the Trenton Alumni Chapter Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated's first session. So you want to start a business of our Get Bossed Up speaker series. BOSS stands for Business Opportunities and Startup Strategies. My name is Nicole Carmichael, and I'm the chairperson of our Economic Development Committee. Tonight, we are collaborating with our amazing and hard-working Greek sisters of the Epsilon Xi Zeta chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated to bring you this valuable and pertinent information. Last year, we presented the Get Your House in Order speaker series. Please visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel to review Building Generational Wealth, Taxes 2022, and You, Estate Planning, Funeral Planning and Life Insurance, and From a Renter to a Homeowner sessions. The year number changes, but as we know, life keeps lifing. Now, back to the business of tonight. November is National Entrepreneurship Month. Rates of new business openings have surged in recent years as more people decide that they'd rather take a risk and work for themselves than stick with traditional employment. Black businesses were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic and closed at twice the rate of other businesses. According to Forbes, post-pandemic, Black entrepreneurship continues to rise. The number of new Black business owners has risen 38%, and 17% of Black women are either in the process of launching or already running a new business. Starting a new business can be scary. Where do I begin? What kind of business do I want to start? There are so many questions. Soror Janelle Hazel is the committee's co-chair and will introduce tonight's speaker and moderators. Thank you. Soror Janelle.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I'm so pleased to introduce our speaker and our moderators this evening. Regina Gwynn is the co-founder of Black Women Talk Tech, the organization that aims to identify, support, and encourage Black women to build the next billion-dollar business. Black Women Talk Tech is the largest collective of Black women tech founders that brings a unique understanding of the challenges Black women face and the advantages they offer to the tech industry. As co-founder, Regina co-leads the business strategy, strategic partnership development, and sponsor relations. Regina started her career in the product development executive training program at Federated Department Stores, now Macy's, and successfully launched 3 private label brands during her tenure. After graduating from the Kellogg School of Management with her MBA, Regina was a management consultant with the Monitor Group, now Monitor Deloitte Consulting, and worked with clients within the beauty, media, and healthcare industries. She was then tapped to lead marketing at the Apparel Group, where she built the department from scratch and launched the company's first e-commerce site for its signature brand, Foxcroft Collection. Regina Gwynn launched her first tech startup in 2014 with Tresse Noir, a platform that empowers women of color to celebrate their textured hair with a personalized beauty routine that works. Its virtual beauty coach takes the guesswork out of finding the right natural hair products and services by matching your individual hair profile to a beauty regimen designed by experts. Regina has been named one of the 100 most powerful women by Entrepreneur Magazine and Top 10 Women in Tech by Essence Magazine. Her features include BET Her, Black Enterprise, Wall Street Journal, Crane's Business, and more. She's on the cabinet for Black entrepreneurship in the city of New York and a Woman.NYC advisor, along with a former board member of Rising Tide Capital, an entrepreneur development program based in Jersey City, New Jersey. Regina loves to travel, dance, and watch football. Go Giants. And I would be remiss if I did not state that Regina is also a soror of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Our moderators for this evening will be Kia Inman and Tara Butler. Please welcome Kia, Tara, and of course, Regina with us this evening.
Good evening, everyone. We are just so delighted to be here, Tara and myself.
Yes.
We will be working together to tag team out this question and answer session for Miss Regina. We are so excited to hear about your journey as an entrepreneur, as we know that there are business opportunities and startup strategies that you can certainly share with us on today. So, Regina, my first question to you is, tell us just a little bit about yourself in terms of where did you come from and how did you end up going into entrepreneurship, if you will?
Sure. First, I'd just like to thank the amazing sorors of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Trenton Alumni Chapter, as well as our Greek friends with Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. So again, just thank you for having me. I always love talking to Black women about running your own business, finding generational wealth, and really looking at financial freedom for yourselves and for your families. When you empower a Black woman, you not only empower her, you empower her school, her church, her sorority, her community. She creates such amazing opportunities. It's something that just goes unnoticed so often. And so we're here to amplify the stories of Black women entrepreneurs. And so when I think about, where I started, I am actually originally from North Carolina, born and raised. So I am a country girl. I grew up barefoot, running around, climbing trees. And but my dad was an entrepreneur and his dad was an entrepreneur. So seeing the inner workings of a small business at a very early age is something that definitely has stayed with me. It's something that I've really learned that is not often, it's not common, if you will. And so I always knew that I wanted to start my own company. Even, in going through corporate America, I chose to go through executive training programs so that I could learn on someone else's dime, right? So at Macy's, I was able to launch Inc. International Concepts. It's probably still on the sales floor to this day. And so, being able to develop the brand for the menswear division is something that was phenomenal because you're able to literally build brands from scratch and use Macy's budget as opposed to your own. And so I definitely saw that those experiences allowed me to learn how hard it is to start a business and that it is not for most people. I think right now, everyone's like, oh, I got to start a business. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm doing these things. Listen, we need folks that have discretionary income because you are broke when you are your own entrepreneur. So I just want to be real transparent on this call this evening. It is not for the faint of heart. So I guess that's kind of.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, because you're going right into my question, which is, of course, we've heard of the successes of your business right now, where you're the largest convening of Black women tech entrepreneurs and technologists. But with this level of success, we know that you had to start somewhere. So would you please briefly just tell us about your journey to launching specifically a technology startup would be helpful.
Sure. So let's see. So the first tech startup was Tres Noir, as Sora Janelle mentioned. That was the first on-demand, on-location beauty booking app for women of color, launched way back when. And from that experience is really what prompted myself and my other co-founder to create Black Women Talk Tech. So, I built that business originally, in Philadelphia, expanded it to Washington, D.C., New York, LA, Cincinnati. We were in Dallas. We were in all types of places. We received venture capital dollars from Backstage Capital, which is a VC firm in Los Angeles. Arlen Hamilton is the founding member of that fund, and then also was a part of Google for Startups' first Black entrepreneurs program back in 2016. So, when we decided to actually build these kinds of businesses, it was out of a need. As always, you're finding these opportunities and you're like, well, why is this so hard? Or why do I have to go this journey in this way? Can I find a different way? And can I test those kinds of business ideas and see whether or not we can monetize them, right? So, when we think about business, if it's not making money, it's a hobby. Okay, so if we need to look at what that product is and what the market opportunity is, we want to say, okay, here's this product and it's great, and I can make money from it. If you cannot actually make money from it, it's awesome and you can do it, but it's not necessarily a business, right? Like it's
Wow.
something that you can,
Right.
just kind of put your efforts into in general.
Wow, that's
Wow.
that's very interesting that you would say that. You said if it's not making money, then it's a hobby.
Right. And
And
that's
that's-
that's a perfect segue into my next question. Hi, Kia. I just want to say you're amazing. So in reading your story and how you began, you indicated, and your story was just absolutely amazing.
Thank
You
you.
indicated that there wasn't a specific roadmap, right, for making $1 billion or making money isn't designed for people of color like us, especially Black women. So that in reading that, it prompted you to create a tech conference designed specifically for Black techs and entrepreneurs, where Black women could be seen, right? And our voices could be heard, and to also have individuals or funders invest their money.
Sure.
So, and it also should be noted, right, that your conference is the largest convening of Black women tech
Yes.
entrepreneurs and technologists. Awesome.
That's
Kudos
big.
to you. That's a big hand clap right there, right?
Thank you,
So-
thank you.
My question is, what challenges did you face as a Black entrepreneur in building your company, and what strategies did you use to overcome? Can you tell us also more about the fundraising? Because we all need money.
Yes.
Yes. So a couple things. So challenges that I faced launching my business is, I don't even know where to begin. I think, it's hard to run a business, period. Right. So again, like, let's just level set, it's hard to run a business, period. It is harder when you are a woman. And then it's even harder when you are a woman of color.
Mhm.
I had a co-working space in New York City accuse me of stealing an iPad and a bottle of Johnny Walker.
What?
It was laughable. Like it was one of those situations where it was an out of body
Oh
experience.
my God.
Like, okay, got it, duly noted. Needless to say, they looked at the cameras and were able to see, who really, lifted the items. But when we think about the challenges, let's talk about perception, right? Let's talk
Mhm.
about, when you walk into a room, who do they think the founder is? Who do they think the CEO is? I've walked into rooms with investors and they're like, oh, well, where's the CEO? And I'm looking around like,
Right here.
I'm here. Hi, I'm actually here. So, I think also when you're a non-technical founder, so specifically for women and entrepreneurs that are interested in starting technology companies, oftentimes the barriers are that you yourself are not an engineer, and you think that if you yourself don't know how to code, or if you don't know how to actually build the technology, that you can't be a tech entrepreneur. And that's a myth. That's false. I'm not an engineer. I do not have an engineering degree. I don't know how to code. I now know enough to be dangerous, to be sure. But this idea that you're at a disadvantage because you aren't as fully aware of all the different types of languages, the front end, the back end, the full stack, the half stack. So those are some things that have definitely been challenges. But I think the thing that we have really focused on is more so, what do we do about it, right? Like, we don't focus on the problems. We really focus on the solutions.
Right.
And how are we working with partners and other community organizers and other brands to say, hey, look, there's women out here creating amazing innovations. They've got amazing ideas, tapping into untapped markets, underserved communities that make people money. Okay. I will always say, if you are talking about money, investors will be interested. So that's something that is really key. And then the last thing, really quick, I'll say around funding, right? So there's lots of different ways to fund your business. I bootstrapped my business. So, because I was working in corporate America, I used those funds to get Trust Noir started. I also, one thing I will always say, anyone starting a business, get your personal credit in order. Okay. Being able to get business loans, being able to get personal credit cards and or business credit cards, they all have a personal guarantee. So you do have to get that credit in order. It is critical for you to even start. Because those business loans and getting access to lines of credit is even tighter now in this current economic landscape. So, the inflation, the Fed raising interest rates literally like every other month. This is making the cost of capital much higher. And so the access to that capital is also becoming harder. So you really do have to put all those pieces together.
Thank you for that, because that actually is going to segue into the next question, because we know that with creating a sustainable business, it takes a lot of grit, commitment of your time, resources, and your heart. But it also requires strategy,
Sure.
in terms of being, transparent. So could you just share with us just a few critical lessons that you so happen to learn along the way regarding the ups and downs, specifically as it relates to legal decisions and marketing strategies? And you mentioned partnerships. If you could share with us, your thoughts on that and your experiences would be helpful.
Absolutely. I'm sure I think you all are probably going to do a whole separate workshop on legal and taxes. These two pieces of your business can kill your business if they aren't structured correctly. Deciding whether to be an LLC versus a C corporation, deciding to be a sole proprietor versus an S corp versus a B corp. These are things that really will affect your business in the short run, and more importantly, in the long run. Right. The longer you stay in one particular entity and decide to go that route, your business history, right? Like your business history is going to be associated with whatever legal structure that you create. So definitely thinking about what that looks like. So for technology companies, most venture firms do want a C corporation. So usually if you're building a tech business, that's the entity that you'll choose. But it doesn't have to be that way. If you want an LLC, it's much more advantageous from a tax perspective to go the LLC route than a C corporation. So there's pros and cons there. And then also, get a good CPA and a bookkeeper. Just pay the money. Yeah. Just do it.
Yeah, keep that money right.
Just eat the cost. It will benefit you in the long run. Please believe me when I tell you, it is so critical. So, just making sure that your transactions, all of your accounting is in order, so that you don't have to go through it at the end of the year. And you're trying to remember, what did I do in January of 2023? And here it is, November and December. Choosing W-2 and full-time employees versus 1099. I mean, there's a lot of different decisions that have to be made, and there is definitely a strategy to them in that, the pros and cons of going the W-2 route creates culture. It influences clearly your profitability because you're paying more for that overhead. Again, I could go on and on about, some of these pieces, but I do think that, if I were to double click specifically on legal and CP and the kind of the CPA bookkeeping, get them early, build relationships, make them advisors of your company so that maybe they give you a discount, find the pro bono in your city, in your state. There are definitely resources out there that can help you ramp up with low cost.
Wow, it's a lot of information, a lot of good information.
Good information.
Yeah, right. So, but with all the programs and initiatives housed under the Black Women Talk Tech and the day-to-day challenges of life, being in organizations, being in a sorority, family life, how do you balance the demands of your growing company with your personal life and self-care? Because we know self-care is important, right? Because you can't serve anybody else if you're not right? And I advocate for some self-care, but talk a little bit about how do you navigate the waters when it comes to day-to-day life and, building your company and staying on task?
Yeah, I do the best that I can. I can't say that I am, full transparency. I can't say I'm doing the best with self-care at this very moment, but I do recognize how important it is. Your body will eventually like stop you when you have just taken way too much and need to slow down and sit down. So, I do, you don't want to get to that point for sure. And so, understanding yourself, understanding your body, and also understanding that, there are seasons, right? Like there's times where you do need to be head down, just focused on making it happen, right? Like, the challenge with entrepreneurship, oftentimes, if you're not doing a franchise, they give you a playbook, they say, hey, do it like this, and this will happen. But when you're building a business from scratch, especially within technology, where you're literally building tech that has never existed before, there's no blueprint. There's no roadmap. So it can be very lonely. It can feel very insular because you're the only one that, and your team are the only ones that really know kind of where this path could even potentially go. And so there's times where you just have to focus on that. And then there's times where you will reap the benefits of your, reap the benefits of your labor and celebrate. So it is about balance for sure.
Very good. Many people often dream about owning such a lucrative business that would create jobs and help to stabilize our economy, both locally and nationally. But, my question is in terms of, expanding the company and hiring your first person, how did you prioritize what type of person to hire, as well as what role they would play for your business as it was growing?
That's a really good question. And it varies so much per company. But for us, the first person that we hired was in marketing. So we looked at the things that we were doing and said, what is the thing that if we could get more of our time to focus on money making per se, like money making focused things, but the thing that's going to be building our community and continuing to help us grow, what is that thing? And for us, it was hiring someone in the marketing team. She was, junior marketing manager, but she was phenomenal. I would also say for those that are looking to, again, my perspective is oftentimes for a technical business or a technology business, hire a designer, right? Like hire a designer that makes you look sophisticated and fabulous, and you have no idea what the hell you're doing, right? Like the premise is, let's create the story and create what will allow you to at least get in the room. And then you can sell yourself, you can sell the product and let that conversation go from there. But oftentimes, image is important and image matters. So you do want to make sure that you are polished, put together, T's crossed, I's dotted. And so sometimes a designer can help with that as well.
So I know we said that we were going to put the questions at the end, but there's one question that is actually a segue into my next question. Okay. So it says to start the business. Wait a minute, is it first? Let me just bring it up here. Okay. It says question from, what is the recommended credit score to start the business? Second, I have a concept, but how do I get the business off the ground? Which is a segue into my next question. What advice do you have for other Black entrepreneurs who are just starting out on their journey to build a successful business? And what are the tools that they would need to make it successful and to make sure that it's sustainable and it lasts?
Sure. So for those that are just now starting a business, first of all, congrats. Right? Like you've gotten to a point where you actually have a business idea that you want to put in the market. A lot of people talk, okay? And they don't actually do, and they don't actually put it out into the universe. And so when you actually can put these concepts to market and test them, it's a win. So, I'm on my second, maybe even third business right now, and this won't be my last, right? So I'm getting better at, with every business on how to launch, how to think about the strategy, how to think about profitability and margins. Like it's a process. And so I think the first step is to literally get the product into your target customer's hands and let them give you feedback. It could be 5 people, it could be 3 people, but the testing is critical. Because what you don't want to do is spend a lot of time developing a product and then get it into the customer's hands and they say, no thanks. Or what you think it's worth, let's say you think it's worth $100 and all the features and benefits to someone else, I'd pay $50. So making sure that what we call this product market fit, right? Like the product needs to fit the market demand. And that is the thing that you want to test early and often and as low cost as possible. Yeah. So you don't want to spend $10,000 on an app that you have not tested with a customer. You don't want to spend thousands of dollars or even hell, $500, on something that you have no idea whether or not this is something that's going to have product market fit. So I think that's number one. The first recommendation. The credit score, anything over 650, 675, I think is a great start. So what we consider good, credit is ideal. Of course, anything higher than that is even better, right? You'll get better rates. You might get better terms when you have over 700 with a credit score. Did I answer the questions? Was that right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think,
yeah.
Absolutely.
I have a question before I go into the next question in the chat. In terms of young people, if young Black girls, if they wanted to get into this field, right? Is there a platform for mentorship? If so, what would that look like? And what kind of classes would you recommend that they take in order to put themselves in a position to be able to get into this field?
So are we talking about classes on entrepreneurship or classes to get into tech, like to become a developer or an entrepreneur? Oh, okay. So Girls Who Code, great organization, nationally recognized. I don't know if they have chapters in New Jersey per se, and they may have some online classes. I think, and you're also talking specifically about young people, correct? Okay. Yes. So I'd probably need to do a little bit of digging. I don't want to misspeak, but I do know they exist. Let me start there. I do know they exist, and then separately, I think the idea is always to get exposure. So as often as we can plan a trip to go to tour Google's offices in New York City and Chelsea, or if there's an opportunity to go to Microsoft's headquarters in Times Square, like, the more exposure that young people get to these types of roles, I think that's also really, really important. And then, I mean, there's tons of sorors that are, engineers and working in tech. So, I think eventually if there's opportunities to kind of have a women in tech panel, that I think might also be awesome. A different approach.
Right. I think that's actually a great idea. But we do have a couple of other questions in the chat. And one is specifically about the fact that you didn't come from an engineering background. So the question is how did you source your engineers to build out your tech stack? And any recommendations on how to source these individuals with limited resources?
Yeah, that's always, it's a huge challenge. I can't even tell you the out-of-body experiences I had dealing with terrible developers. Terrible. Like, and it's just, extremely frustrating because sometimes they look like me, sometimes they didn't. And, I think that it was an eye opener to think, oh, okay, well, I found found a Black woman entrepreneur, a Black woman engineer. This is going to be great. And she still did not deliver what, we were looking for. So, so just just take that with a grain of salt, that it is hard, period, to find technical talent. You can find it in a lot of different places. So, Upwork, I don't know if you all are familiar with Upwork. It's a marketplace for, all types of independent contractors, whether they are, developers. You can find bookkeepers, accountants, all those types of things. I would say that, referrals is always ideal. So, talking to someone that is working with a developer and you like their work, and they will let you see their code. Is your code clean? What types of languages do you work with? Is it Ruby on Rails? Is it Python? Do you work within a LAMP stack? You do need to have a little bit of knowledge in order to vet these technical resources. And if you don't, then here's where getting the right people on your board, right? So imagine you've got your board of advisors, right? It doesn't have to be official. It could be your informal board of advisors, that one of them's a lawyer, one of them's a bookkeeper, and one of them is a CTO. Okay. And every couple of weeks, you're going to check in with them and say, hey, these are the problems that I'm having. Would love to get your feedback. Having a technical advisor, especially when you're a non-technical founder, critical. Critical. It was not until I had a technical advisor that I saw why I was getting such terrible help.
There's another question. Is building a business to sell it only a viable strategy with technology firms, or is this how entrepreneurs should look to make money nowadays?
Great question.
That's a really good question. So is building a business to sell it the only viable strategy? Is building a business to sell it only a viable strategy with tech firms? No. So you can have, a lifestyle business. You could have, restaurants. You could have, a law firm, like professional services. Those types of businesses get bought all the time. So the idea of acquisition is definitely trending, and something that more of us should be looking at as a business strategy and generating wealth. So I would definitely not say that it's solely relegated to tech firms. But I think that there is a different kind of financial, there's going to be a different kind of financial structure that you'll need to have, right? Like you'll need to have the money to acquire a business. And so, you'll need to think about what that also looks like in terms of how much money are you looking to make, right? Like, is it that you're acquiring this business and you're going to grow it, or you're just acquiring the business and then it's already profitable, therefore it is more expensive to acquire, and then you're just going to kind of reap the benefits of the existing business versus the expansion. So I think there's a couple of different layers there.
Awesome. I do have a question for you in regards to a business plan. Now, I understand that before you start your business, you should develop a business plan. But my question is, at what point should you go back to that business plan to maybe re-strategize, or even look to expand it a little bit more into something else? Like what should someone, do if, in terms of following the business and where they want it to actually go?
Great question. Business plans are phenomenal. I'm a huge fan of a very streamlined business plan. I'm not a fan of 50 pages of a business plan that you don't look at ever again, right? Like that's not helpful. And it's a bit of a waste, my personal view. It's a bit of a waste of time to develop, a long drawn out business plan. But knowing why you're doing something, knowing what that product is, how you're going to get it to market, and how you're going to price it. I think those are really important things to write down and look back on, right? So I think that when the good time to look back at your strategy is when it's not working.
Right.
Okay. So if it's not working, then it's time to change the strategy. And then part of also what the inflection point is when it is working. So if you're finding that things are flying off the shelves, then maybe that's the time to think about a product. Well, actually, by the time it's flying off the shelves, you should be already thinking about what expansion looks like, right? What is it, a product expansion? Is it a service that you're adding on to the business? Think about vertical integration and horizontal integration. So if you have a restaurant, you're hearing a lot more about farm to table, right? So if you have a restaurant, instead of buying the ingredients, maybe you have a farm and you grow the ingredients yourself. Or, there might be a co-op of multiple restaurants that you all own this farm that you're sourcing, the best ingredients. So you're building more ownership through different pieces of the supply chain versus solely focusing on the restaurant itself.
Awesome. There's another question in the chat. Did you ever use overseas talent, which tends to be less expensive?
Absolutely. I used a developer from Pakistan named Sub Hashish, and he actually was very, very good. Again, he was recommended from one of my investors. So I was able to use him to develop the first couple of iterations of Tres Noir, our back end. And then I moved on to, we switched to Google Cloud because we had joined the Google for Startups or community rather. So then I moved to a different developer who again was recommended. So I will say, I had to go through a lot of terrible developers to get to one that was halfway decent. And those did come from referrals.
Okay. All right, awesome. I do see another question. How do you see the proliferation of AI technology changing the game for entrepreneurs, especially Black tech women?
So, AI is a huge buzzword right now. I'm so excited to see how AI will expand product offerings. So, AI has finally gotten to an inflection point in terms of what we call like LLM, right? Large learning models. This allows these huge buckets of data to be trained in order to spit out an answer when you ask it a question, right? And so when we think about these LLMs, they now can be created per industry. So you've got AI for hotels, AI for education, AI for healthcare, AI for beauty, AI for automotive. Like it's endless, right? Because now we have endless amounts of data that's feeding into these models. And so what does that mean for Black people? So if the data doesn't include us, then the output won't include us either. So I don't know if you all are familiar with Timnit Gebru. She is the founder of Blacks in AI. She was a Google engineer, and she was unfortunately let go because she has been very, very vocal about the use of AI and the lack of data that includes everything about us, right? So like, it's not just our skin tone, and it's not just our voice, and it's not our facial features in terms of like the facial recognition that's also used to develop data. That is another piece of data, but it's also our culture. It's how it's how, I don't know if y'all are familiar with this, but there's there was a white rapper who had gotten a recording deal by creating an entire AI generated presence on Instagram, right? So rap and hip hop are inherently influence driven, created and innovated by people of color. And yet someone else could create an entire culture and persona around it and get a record deal. And here we are with no record deals. How is that? So, we do have to continue to advocate for ourselves. We do need to watch AI very closely. I am so excited about some of the founders in our community that's using AI to create amazing technology. and they're getting paid really, really well to do it. So I'm very excited. So, you know, in the grand scheme of things, I do see it to be something that is going to be a game changer. But we do need to figure out how to monetize it. I think everyone's super excited about it. I'm always going to come back to the money. Like, how to get monetized.
And that's what makes you such a great entrepreneur.
I know, right?
Hey, listen, I like money. Anyone who likes money, put their hand up.
2 hands. But there seems to be, Tara, I don't know if you saw this one, but there's one more question in the chat about the living, the business plan.
The business plan should the business plan be utilized as a living document?
Sure. Yes. You know, I think that, yes, you know, I think that the business plan is a good place to evolve. I have to say, like, I'm probably more of the train of thought that is focused on the doing. You know, like there's nothing wrong with having a business plan as long as you're actually implementing the things that are in that business plan. So whether and maybe it's also, you know, how we think about like the structure or the format of a business plan. You know, I look at my strategy every year. Hell, I look at my strategy every day. In terms of what are the things that are key and critical, and I'm prioritizing this towards a specific goal to hit, you know, a certain metric, you know, that's part of our plan. So I think the business plan as a whole is a document that can absolutely be a living document, but I don't want it to necessarily be restrictive to, if it's not in the business plan, I'm not doing it. Or if it is in the business plan, that I should do it. Do the things that in real time you're seeing work or not work, given the feedback that you're getting from your clients and your customers and the data that you're analyzing around, you know, the growth of your business.
Awesome. Awesome. So I think that there's no more questions in the chat at this point. But we are just so glad that you were able to just pour out so much information and knowledge in terms of entrepreneurship and how to start. So at this point, we will turn it over to, we will ask first if there's any additional questions that anyone would like to ask, if they don't mind just unmuting themselves and jumping right on in.
Nope.
I have a question. What if you're considering entering a market that is saturated by franchises? Okay, so like personal health care areas are really dominated by big healthcare organizations, and you even have insurance companies now stepping into that arena. But in my experience, there's still a need for some of that personalized hand-on care, especially with our community. So what would you suggest if you're trying to start or look into entering that market? Should you go the franchise route, learn the business, and then branch off, or just take a risk and kind of go it alone?
Well, I mean, I guess there's a couple of different things, to consider. You know, the market is saturated. So, you know, in terms of just managing expectation, thinking about, you know, how you're truly differentiating your product amongst that saturated audience is going to be, you know, really, really key. And yet, you know, we go to the supermarket and we see tons of different bread, right? Like you've heard this. I heard this. I saw this somewhere, and I was like, that's very true. You go to the supermarket and see 11 different kinds of bread on the shelf, and so there's it's still bread, and people are still differentiating themselves. So, testing. You know, I'll always go back to testing and product market fit. If you are creating a truly a product that is different and that your customer is choosing you over all the other options that are in the market, then you have a business. And, you know, I think that the franchise route is extremely helpful. Like I will never say anything bad about franchises. I think that it is a way to you have a much more solid, you're de-risking entrepreneurship essentially, by going the franchise route. So, if that's something that is an option, then great. And maybe, you keep that franchise and you tweak it a little bit, and and it just becomes the way you do business. And because it might be kind of the delivery versus just kind of like the overarching product itself, that can allow you to just own more market share within that franchise versus, creating something wholly new.
Hi, I had a question. In terms of, can you talk a little bit about the process for securing venture capital? Like, what does that process look like?
Sure. So it looks different for every person. But I will say that, when you think about if you're going through your fundraising strategy and you decide that venture is the best way forward, the first place to start is just doing the research, right? So there's tons of venture firms out here in the market now, and figuring out researching their investment thesis. So there might be a VC fund that focuses solely on investing in fintech companies, financial or finance tech companies. There could be VC firms that only invest in healthcare companies. So you've got to do the research to determine which funds are focused on which industries, and make sure that your industry is one that they actually invest in, because otherwise you're really wasting, your time and theirs. And they get tons of pitches. I mean, tons of pitches every year. And yet it is their job to go through all of those pitches to find the startups that are worthy of investment. So I would say that the first step is the research piece. And then the second step is looking at the portfolio companies that they've already invested in. So ideally, the best introduction to a VC is through one of their portcos, one of their portfolio companies. So, if you think about, oh my goodness, Andreessen Horowitz. So Andreessen Horowitz is a very large VC fund in Silicon Valley. They invested in Uber. They've invested in not Fresh Direct. What's the other one? Postmates. So they've invested in several companies. And so the best way, imagine if you wanted to get investment from Andreessen, ideally you would want to connect with someone from Uber, someone from Fresh Direct, someone from one of the companies that they've invested in, because then it serves as somewhat of a validation that, if this person is willing, because mind you, people have asked me to make introductions, and I have said no, because if I don't believe in your startup, then it's going to be hard for me to introduce you, because then it could reflect negatively on me. So I would say that that those are kind of the first two steps. But I'd also take just one other step even before going the venture route is really understanding the structure of venture, because when you do decide to accept venture dollars, it does put you on a path to exit, right? So, you're deciding that taking this money is going to also take that venture capitalist expectations, and they expect a 10x return on their money. So if you realize that they are going to expect that return, you're not going to be able to give it to them in your current state. And ultimately, the only state is most likely, I guess I don't say the only, but the most common and the most likely state where that VC will get their return is with an IPO or with an exit. So it really does speak to what does ownership look like for founders? What does equity look like for entrepreneurs in tech? And I've seen a lot of businesses, unfortunately, give away equity too early. and end up with a sliver by the time they actually, reach profitability and reach, larger valuations, and then end up with very, very little by the time they exit. Any other questions?
We have, I think, the 2 minutes before we can wrap up, but there is one question left in the chat. So if we can just try to answer that one. What are some of the biggest mistakes people make when starting a business? And that'll be our last question.
Okay. Yes, sure. That's a great question because lots of mistakes do happen. And I would say the biggest mistake is spending a lot of money. You really, really should not be spending a lot of money. And again, a lot of money is relative, right? Like if you're in corporate America and you're making six figures and you're like, $10,000 is nothing, it's something. So, you really have to be, imagine you have no money. Like some people like literally don't have money, but imagine you just literally have absolutely no money to start a business. How would you get your product to market? And then from that perspective, okay, well, maybe I'll spend $100 here. Maybe I'll spend $500 there. Because what ends up happening is you spend money on the testing as opposed to pouring gas on it once you actually know what you're doing, right? So by the time you get to the point where you've actually achieved that product market fit, you don't have any money anymore. So I think that that's definitely a huge mistake I have seen lots of people do. And then also the research, right? Like you don't know that you spend all this money because no one told you that you shouldn't spend $100,000 on building an app, right? Like you just don't know what you don't know. And so, that's why Black Women Talk Tech exists is so that we can, demystify and pull the covers off and just blow the roof off. Like there's this information has been so closeted and, I'm not invited into this room and I'm not invited over here. We want you here. We want you to know what all the information I know, I want y'all to know. Because it doesn't help me. It doesn't advance my goal of building generational wealth for my community if I'm the only one that knows about things. So I do think that the research and the education piece is also like one of the biggest mistakes, because you just think and you assume that the market is there, and you think and you assume that your product is worth this amount, as opposed to actually like doing the research to figure that out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks,
Thank you.
ladies.
Thank you,
You're
Sir Regina Gwen, for all the useful information that you've presented to us this evening. I'd like to thank the moderators and also Sora Regina Quince, the chapter's tech chair. Participants, here is your time to let us know how you received this session and what else you may want the chapter to present. I've dropped the link already in the chat. While you are completing the evaluation, we will hear closing remarks from Crystal Miller, chapter president of the Epsilon Xi Zeta chapter Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and Dr. Morella McMillan Holmes, chapter president of the Trenton Alumni chapter Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Again, thank you to Regina, thank you to our moderators, and again, all our guests. It's so important that we get together and we discuss and we share our ideas and our dreams, and we support each other as Black women. I want to encourage everyone. I heard Regina talk about Google. If you are interested, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated has secured 100 scholarships in our partnership with Grow with Google, where Black women can earn scholarships to get their cybersecurity certificate or even a project management certificate. So if you are interested, you can Google Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated Epsilon Xi Zeta chapter, look us up on Facebook, shoot us an email, and we can get that information to you. Thank you so much again for joining us this evening.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And I don't want to be redundant with my sister. My sister has said earlier, but thank you to the Economic Development Committee. Thank you. This is truly what collaboration and sisterhood looks like. And I'm so happy that we were able to partner with our sisters in the blue and white Zeta Phi Beta to bring such a relevant information to our community. And I think, and look, Sora, Regina Gwen, do your thing. Thank you so much. Your example just speaks kudos to your initiative, sort of your vision. And thank you for being a resource for us as well. As we as Black women venture down, becoming entrepreneurs, but being smart about it. And also valuing and learning from the experience that you've gone before, and this being the visionary, the innovator to do something that is different. So thank you so much. Thank you to the committee. Thank you to my sisters in the blue and white for coming with us, for doing it. And we too have a Grow Google initiative. But Sister Miller, you were first. So I'm gonna let you slide tonight. You got to it first.
Thank you.
We too have a Grow Google. So kudos to Google for investing in our community. So
Yes.
Definitely are a partner investing with Black women of color. So we're so thankful for that. And listen, economic development, I can't wait for the future, for the future workshops, because this one was phenomenal. I see it all in the chat. It was timely, it was informative, it was engaging. And just, yeah, I don't want to be, colloquial, but Black girls rock. Black girls just rock. Black girl magic. So thank you so much, Sora Gwen, for sharing your time, to our sisters for coming on and partnering with us, because together we make our community better. Together we are stronger. Together we are more impactful. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, if you have not filled out the evaluation, please fill it out. And after that, we hope that you have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also a plug, if you haven't bought a ticket to our Little Black Dress, in collaboration with the Trenton Alumni Chapter Kappa Alpha Psi, that is going on this Saturday. You can go on our Facebook page and you can buy a ticket from there. Thank you.